You have been stuck inside for 3 days because of rain, and you are miserable. You have a roof, heating, a refrigerator full of food, and a phone full of distractions, and you are still miserable. Now remove all of that. The roof, the walls, the stored food, the dry clothes, the waterproof jacket, the hot drink. Put yourself in a forest, in prehistoric Europe, 60,000 years ago, during a rainy season that does not end for weeks. The temperature is hovering just above cold enough to kill you. Everything you need to survive, fire, food, warmth, becomes exponentially harder the wetter it gets. This was not a thought experiment. This was the daily reality of being human for the vast majority of human history. Rain was unglamorous and relentless, and arguably more consistently dangerous to early humans than almost anything with teeth. It killed fires, caused hypothermia, rotted food, flooded shelters, and lasted for months. And ancient humans not only survived it, they thrived in some of the wettest, most brutal climates on the planet. Start with the most immediate problem rain creates for a human being without shelter. Not drowning, the real killer is heat loss. Water conducts heat away from the human body roughly 25 times faster than air does. This is the difference between sitting in a cold room, feeling chilly, and sitting in a cold lake, dying. You don't need ice. You need wet clothes, a mild wind, and a temperature around 10 degrees that is a British summer. Ancient humans knew this, not from reading about thermodynamics, from watching each other die. The first and most critical survival skill in wet conditions is maintaining core body temperature. Fire is the obvious answer, and also a deeply complicated one in the context of rain. Wet wood won't ignite. Wet tinder won't catch. A fire that gets rained on dies. A dead fire in a hypothermic situation is not an inconvenience. It is a death sentence written in wet ash. Ancient humans thought about fire the way modern humans think about electricity, as infrastructure, not as an event. Fire was not something you made when you needed it. Fire was something you maintained continuously, because starting it from scratch in wet conditions is one of the hardest things a human can do. Carrying fire was a practiced skill across virtually every ancient human culture that has ever been studied. Embers, wrapped in slow-burning organic material, damp moss, fungus, bark from specific trees, could be carried for hours while traveling. Archaeological evidence from sites across Europe shows hearths that burned continuously for years, not relit repeatedly, but maintained. Someone's job, in bad weather, was to keep the fire alive, not to hunt, not to forage, just to sit with the fire, shield it, feed it. This is one of the earliest divisions of labor we can infer from the archaeological record. Before tools, before medicine, someone was a specialist in fire. Ancient humans were not the cave-dwelling primitives of popular imagination. The cave-dwelling image is partly an artifact of preservation bias. Caves are where evidence survives, so caves are where we look. Most ancient humans lived in structures they built, and those structures showed a level of environmental intelligence that is genuinely impressive. The oldest known constructed shelters date to around 400,000 years ago, long before Homo sapiens. branches angled to shed water, leaves layered in overlapping rows like shingles, each layer overlapping the one below so rain runs off rather than through. The same principle as a modern roof arrived at independently with no engineering education by hominins whose brain was somewhat smaller than yours. Mammoth bone structures found in Eastern Europe dating to 15,000 years ago show deliberate architectural thinking, heavy bones anchored into the ground to resist wind. Hides stretched across the frame, insulation layers inside. These weren't holes to hide in. They were engineered environments built specifically to maintain heat and exclude moisture. The hide construction represents one of the most important material innovations in human history, and it happens specifically as a response to wet, cold climates. Animal hides, properly prepared, are nearly waterproof. The fat content of untreated hide provides natural water resistance. When ancient humans began turning raw hide into usable material, scraping, stretching, treating with fat, smoking, they were essentially inventing leather. The cognitive leap required to go from "this animal has a skin" to "I can turn that skin into something that protects my skin" is not trivial. The animal is killed today. The hide is processed over several days. The finished product protects against weather weeks later. This is planning, abstract thinking. Ancient humans were doing this at least 120,000 years ago, based on archaeological evidence of hide-scraping tools found in Africa. Rain didn't just kill ancient humans, it made them smarter. Modern humans experience weather as something that happens to us. We check an app, we get caught in the rain, we go inside. Ancient humans had no such option. Their survival depended on reading the environment continuously, anticipating weather before it arrived. The smell of rain, before it comes, is a real olfactory signal. So is the behavior of animals, which change hours before a storm. Birds fly lower, insects swarm. Certain animals move toward higher ground. The color and texture of clouds, the direction of wind shifts. Ancient humans read these signals the way you read road signs, automatically, fluently, because their lives depended on it. You don't get caught in a downpour when you have been reading the sky all day and have 3 hours of daylight to find high ground and build a rain cover before the storm hits. We had this skill. We traded it for a weather app. Ancient humans also had physiological advantages in wet, cold conditions that we have partially lost through lifestyle. People who are regularly exposed to cold water, cold weather, show reduced cold shock responses. Their bodies adapt. Ancient humans were cold regularly, wet regularly, exposed to temperature variation daily, in a way that no modern human in a climate-controlled environment can approximate. They weren't tougher because they were different humans. They were tougher because they were trained humans, trained by an environment that didn't offer the option of turning up the thermostat. Surviving rain alone is hard. Surviving rain as a group is much more manageable. Shared body heat is a real survival mechanism. A group of humans huddled together under a rain cover generates and retains heat collectively in a way individuals cannot. Privacy is a warm weather luxury. When it is cold and wet, you sleep close to other warm bodies, and you don't think twice about it. The social bond was not a luxury feature of ancient human life. It was survival infrastructure. When a group lost its elders to violence or illness, it didn't just lose people, it lost institutional knowledge that couldn't be quickly replaced. Looking after older people who could no longer hunt was not altruism in the abstract. It was the rational preservation of the group's accumulated rain survival knowledge. The waterproofed hide, the carried ember, the angled branches shedding water. The group huddled around a fire in a structure someone spent 3 hours building before the storm hit. All of it points to the same conclusion. Ancient humans didn't just survive rain. They built a civilization of techniques, knowledge, and social structures specifically designed to manage it. We have Gore-Tex now, insulated walls, central heating, weather radar, drainage systems. But we built all of that because somewhere in our deep past, someone spent a very long, very wet night figuring it out. They figured out that water runs downhill, that smoke keeps the inside of a shelter dry, that certain animal fats make leather almost waterproof, and that staying close to other warm humans is the difference between making it to morning and not. Every technology we use to manage rain today is downstream of that wet, cold, fire-lit night. They figured it out first, without any of the tools we take for granted. That is not primitive survival. That is the foundation everything else was built on.